It was a quiet morning in early spring when everything started to change in Mina's life. The sun was soft, the birds were singing, and the sweet smell of flowers from her small garden filled the air. It was her birthday, the day she used to wait for every year with a heart full of warmth and love. But that year, something inside her felt strange, like the calm before a storm. Mina had turned 58, a gentle woman with kind eyes and a calm voice. She had always believed that family was everything. Her husband had passed away many years ago, leaving her with one son, Arav, whom she loved more than her own life. She raised him with care, sacrificed her own dreams, and built her world around his happiness. But now, things were not the same. Ever since he got married to Ria, her daughter-in-law, the air in her house had changed. Mina had tried her best to accept Ria like her own daughter. She cooked her favorite food, gave her gifts, and even gave her space to decorate the house however she liked. But no matter what Mina did, Ria always looked at her with cold eyes. There was something sharp in her smile, something fake. Mina could never understand what she had done wrong. Sometimes, when Arv wasn't home, Ria would speak to her in a way that cut deep, like a knife made of sugar. She would insult Mina's clothes, her ways, even her cooking. Yet when Arv was around, she acted like the sweetest daughter-in-law in the world. I still remember that night, Mina whispered to herself as she stared at the family photo hanging on the wall. It was the night before her birthday, a night she would never forget. The air had been thick with tension. Ria had spent most of the evening on the phone, talking to her friends about a special plan. Mina overheard bits and pieces, laughter, whispers, the sound of glasses clinking. When Mina asked if she needed help for tomorrow's arrangements, Ria had smiled faintly and said, "No need, Mom. We've got everything under control." The tone was polite, but her eyes said something else, a kind of hidden satisfaction, as if she was waiting for something to happen. That night, Mina couldn't sleep. She kept turning in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling uneasy. Her heart told her something wasn't right. The clock ticked slowly, and every sound in the dark house felt louder than usual, the rustling of leaves outside, the creak of the old wooden door, even the soft hum of the refrigerator. She closed her eyes and tried to calm herself, telling her heart that she was just overthinking. After all, it was her birthday. Why would anything go wrong? But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that tomorrow would not bring joy. Morning came with a golden glow that filled the small living room. Mina got up early, as always. She made tea, placed fresh flowers in the vase, and cleaned every corner of the house. It was her way of showing love. She even wore her favorite blue sari, the one her husband had given her years ago. It was a little faded, but it still made her feel special. As she stood before the mirror, she smiled softly at her reflection. Her eyes had fine lines, her hands had grown weak, but her heart was still young. She wanted to believe that today would be a beautiful day. By noon, the house began to fill with people, Arv's friends, Ria's cousins, and a few neighbors. Laughter echoed through the rooms, music played softly, and the smell of food filled the air. Mina felt a mix of joy and loneliness. She noticed how everyone gathered around Ria, praising her beauty, her clothes, her confidence. Ria moved around gracefully, dressed in a shiny red gown, her makeup perfect. She smiled often, but that smile never reached her eyes when she looked at Mina. Mina stood near the corner, watching them all. Arv came to her, hugged her, and wished her, "Happy birthday, Ma." His warmth still made her heart melt. He looked so happy, but too busy to notice the small shadows in the room. Ria walked over with a glass of wine and placed it in Arv's hand. "Let's toast for Mom's birthday," she said cheerfully. Everyone clapped. Mina smiled and nodded politely, though she never drank. She didn't like wine, she preferred tea or fresh juice. Still, she appreciated the gesture. As the party continued, Ria's friends whispered and laughed among themselves. They looked at Mina and then giggled, hiding their faces. Mina pretended not to notice, but her chest felt tight. Something was wrong. She could feel it in her bones. Then, as she stood by the cake table, one of the guests said loudly, "Ria, your mother-in-law looks so simple. You're so modern, how do you both get along?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Ria looked at Mina with a mocking smile and replied sweetly, "Oh, she tries to match our level, but you know, old habits die hard." The room filled with laughter. Mina froze. For a moment, she didn't understand what had just happened. Arav looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. He was used to Ria's jokes. Mina forced a smile, pretending she didn't care, but her heart cracked a little. She turned to walk away when Ria's voice stopped her again. "Wait, Mom. We still have a surprise for you." Ria's tone was bright and playful, but Mina's heart began to race. The lights dimmed slightly. Soft music played. Ria walked toward Mina holding a glass of red wine, her heels clicking against the floor. Everyone watched. Mina smiled nervously. "What is this surprise, dear?" she asked softly. Ria tilted her head and smirked. "Something that will make you shine tonight, Mom," she said. Before Mina could even react, Ria suddenly threw the glass of wine at her. The dark red liquid splashed across Mina's blue sari, dripping down her arms and face. The room went silent. Gasps echoed. The music stopped. Mina stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. The cold wine soaked her clothes and burned her eyes. The smell of alcohol filled the air. For a moment, she couldn't move, couldn't speak. Ria's voice broke the silence, calm, sharp, and cruel. "Now you look as cheap as you are," she said with a smile that sent chills down everyone's spine. Mina's heart shattered into pieces. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry out. She just stared at Ria, unable to believe what had happened. Arav rushed forward, grabbing Ria's arm. "What are you doing?" he shouted. But Ria pulled away and laughed. "It was just a joke." "Can't you take a joke?" The guests looked at each other awkwardly, unsure whether to speak or leave. Some whispered. Some recorded the scene on their phones. Mina felt the world spinning. Her vision blurred. The only thing she could hear was the beating of her heart. Her son's voice echoed faintly, but she couldn't focus. She slowly turned around and walked toward her room, each step heavy and painful. As she passed the mirror in the hallway, she caught her reflection, a woman drenched in red wine, her sari ruined, her dignity crushed. For the first time in years, she felt truly alone. Inside her room, she sat on the edge of the bed, trembling. The laughter from outside continued faintly. No one came to check on her. She looked at her hands, still shaking, and whispered to herself, "Why, Ria? What did I ever do to you?" But there was no answer, only silence. Her heart ached, but her eyes slowly turned cold. Something inside her changed that moment. The pain began to burn into strength, and her silence grew heavier than any scream. After a few minutes, Arav entered, guilt written all over his face. "Ma. I'm sorry. She didn't mean it. She just had too much to drink." Mina looked up at him. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. She wanted to believe her son, but deep down, she knew the truth. Ria meant every word. And what hurt the most was that her son couldn't see it. She only said quietly, "Go, take care of your wife." "I'm fine." Arav hesitated, then left. The moment the door closed, Mina wiped her tears. Her mind began to replay everything, the whispers, the smiles, the laughter. Every scene cut deeper than the last. But beneath her pain, something else was growing, a strange calmness, almost cold. She knew she had been humiliated in front of everyone, but she also knew one thing: she was not the kind of woman who would stay silent forever. She slowly got up, walked to the mirror again, and looked into her own eyes. The woman staring back was no longer just a mother or a widow. She was someone who had been tested beyond her limit. The reflection looked tired, but there was a spark in her gaze, a quiet promise that this story was not over. Outside, the party went on. The sound of laughter and music filled the house once more, as if nothing had happened. But Mina stood there in the dim light of her room, the red stains still on her sari, and whispered, "You forgot who I am, Ria. But you'll remember soon." And as the clock struck midnight, Mina made a silent decision, one that would change everything in that house forever. The next morning arrived quietly, as if the world itself had forgotten what had happened the night before. The sun rose behind the thin curtains of Mina's room, spreading a pale light across the floor. The house was still. Only the soft ticking of the clock could be heard. Mina sat near the window, her eyes heavy and red from crying all night. The blue sari she had worn to her birthday party was still lying on the chair, stained, wrinkled, and smelling faintly of wine. Every time she looked at it, her heart hurt a little more. She had spent hours thinking about that night, Ria's smirk, the laughter of the guests, and the cold silence that followed. She had never imagined that the same girl she had welcomed with love would one day humiliate her in front of everyone. Mina had tried to raise her son to be kind and respectful, but now she wondered if she had failed somewhere. She had always taught him that love and family were more important than ego, yet he stood there, silent, while his wife insulted his mother. That thought hurt her more than the wine on her clothes. Arav left early that morning for work. He knocked softly on her door before leaving and said, "Ma, please don't be upset. Ria didn't mean it. She's sorry." Mina didn't reply. She just nodded without looking at him. When he left, she heard the door close, and then footsteps coming from the kitchen, Ria's footsteps. Ria entered the living room humming a tune. She looked fresh, her hair tied neatly, wearing a light yellow dress. It was almost as if nothing had happened. She made herself coffee and sat on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Mina came out of her room silently, holding the sari in her hands. Ria looked up, her lips curved slightly. "Good morning, Mom." "Slept well?" she said casually. Mina didn't answer. She just stood there, her eyes calm but firm. Ria raised an eyebrow. "Still upset about last night?" "Oh, come on, it was just a fun moment." Everyone was laughing. "You took it too seriously." Mina's voice was quiet but steady. "You threw wine on me, Ria. In front of everyone." Ria shrugged and sipped her coffee. "So what? It was a joke." "You looked dramatic. Maybe you should learn to laugh a little." For the first time, Mina didn't lower her eyes or walk away. She looked directly at Ria and said, "Jokes don't destroy a person's dignity." Ria smirked. "Dignity? Please, don't act like a queen. You should be grateful that you even have a place in this house. Arav is my husband now, and things will be done my way." Mina's heart trembled, but she stayed calm. She had realized something that morning, Ria's cruelty came from arrogance. She believed she could control everything, even her husband. Mina didn't reply. She just turned and walked back to her room, but inside her mind, something had shifted. She had been silent too long. That afternoon, Mina sat on the balcony, the wind brushing her hair gently. She thought about her late husband, how he used to face people with quiet strength. "You don't need to shout to be strong," he once told her. "Your silence can speak louder than words when you use it wisely." Those words echoed in her heart now. She decided she would not argue or fight. She would let Ria's own actions expose her. Later that day, Ria was on a video call with her friends. Mina could hear her laughter from the kitchen. "You should have seen her face," Ria said loudly. She looked like some old actress from the past, standing there soaked in wine. "I swear, everyone wanted to laugh but they were too polite." Her friends laughed through the phone. Mina stood by the doorway, hearing every word. Her eyes didn't show anger anymore, only a strange, quiet sadness. But behind that sadness, there was determination. That evening, Arav returned home. Ria ran to him, acting sweet and cheerful. "You're home early." "I made your favorite pasta," she said, kissing him on the cheek. Mina stood in the kitchen doorway, watching them. Arav smiled tiredly and said, "Thanks." "How's Mom?" Ria rolled her eyes slightly. "Still dramatic," she replied. Arav frowned but didn't comment. He walked toward his mother and said softly, "Ma, I've been thinking, maybe you should visit your sister for a few days. It'll help you relax." Mina looked at him silently. She knew the idea didn't come from him, it came from Ria. But she just nodded and said, "Yes, maybe I should." Arav smiled in relief, thinking he was doing the right thing. That night, Mina packed a small bag, but she didn't put her clothes inside. Instead, she sat beside her open suitcase, writing something in a small notebook. It was a list, things to remember, things to prepare. When she finished, she closed it carefully and placed it under her pillow. Before sleeping, she whispered to herself, "She thinks I'll leave. But this is my house, and my son is my blood. She may have power today, but she has no roots here. I built this home with my hands. She will learn that one day." The next morning, Mina did not leave for her sister's house. Instead, she went out early, saying she had some temple work. Ria didn't care, she barely looked up from her phone. Mina walked through the familiar streets, the morning air cool and fresh. She reached the old community temple where she used to volunteer years ago. The priest, an old friend of her late husband, greeted her kindly. "Mina ji, after so long," he said. They spoke for a while, and Mina asked him about the women's self-help group that used to meet there. The priest smiled. "Yes, they still come every Thursday. They started a small catering business now." Mina's eyes lit up. "Really?" she asked. The idea began forming in her mind. That day, she stayed there for hours, helping with temple decorations, talking to people, and learning what they had been doing. When she returned home, she looked peaceful for the first time in days. Ria noticed it and frowned. "You look happy," she said suspiciously. Mina smiled faintly. "I met some old friends," she replied. Ria didn't like that answer, but she didn't say anything. She was too busy preparing for a dinner party she had planned for the weekend, another show of her status among friends. Over the next few days, Mina quietly began to spend more time outside the house. She met the women from the group again and started helping them cook and manage orders. Slowly, she became part of their small catering business. They respected her experience and warmth. Mina didn't tell Arav or Ria about it. It was her own secret world, a world that made her feel alive again. One evening, while Ria was getting ready for her party, Mina was helping the group prepare food for a local event. She moved with quiet confidence, managing everything perfectly. People admired her calmness and kindness. One of the women said, "Mina ji, you should take charge of our next big order. You have a magic touch." Mina smiled. "Let's see. I just want to help." But inside, she felt something powerful, the feeling of being needed again. When she came home late that night, the living room was filled with noise and laughter. Ria's friends were there, drinking and dancing. Ria saw her at the door and smirked. "Back from your temple duties, Mom," she said loudly. Her friends laughed. Mina didn't reply. She just smiled calmly and went to her room. But this time, she wasn't hurt. She knew something Ria didn't. The next morning, Arav found a small newspaper on the table. There was an article about a successful local catering group run by women. The photo showed Mina standing proudly among them, smiling warmly. Arav looked at it in surprise. "Ma, you did this?" he asked. Mina smiled gently. "I just helped a little." Ria, who was standing nearby, froze. Her expression darkened. She hadn't expected Mina to do anything meaningful. Oh, so you're a chef now, she said sarcastically. Mina didn't answer. She just looked at Ria and said softly, sometimes, when people think we're weak, they forget we can rebuild quietly. Ria scoffed and left the room, but something inside her began to burn, jealousy. Days passed. Mina's group started getting more orders. They were invited to cater a big event for the local business association. Arv proudly told his colleagues about it, saying, "My mother is doing something wonderful." Ria hated hearing that. Every time someone praised Mina, it made her feel small. She started snapping at Arv, finding excuses to complain about Mina. One night, after another argument with Arv, Ria went into Mina's room without knocking. "Listen," she said coldly, "I don't know what game you're playing, but remember this, I'm the one who runs this house now." Mina looked up from her book and replied quietly, "Maybe. But respect doesn't come from control, Ria. It comes from kindness." Ria clenched her fists. "Don't try to lecture me," she hissed. "You'll regret it if you try to take my husband's attention away." Mina looked at her calmly and said, "I don't need to take anything. The truth takes care of itself." Ria stormed out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Mina sighed softly, feeling the storm growing around her. She knew something big was coming. The air in the house felt heavier each day. That night, as Mina stood near her window, the wind blowing through her hair, she whispered to herself, "Let her plan whatever she wants. I'll stay silent. The truth always comes out, and when it does, no one can hide." And just as she turned off the light, she heard faint voices coming from the living room, Ria on the phone, whispering angrily, "She's ruining everything. I need to teach her another lesson, one she won't forget." Mina froze, her heart beating fast. She couldn't hear the rest, but one thing was clear, Ria was planning something again. The next few days passed quietly in Mina's house, but silence often hides the loudest storms. Ria had grown colder, her eyes filled with something sharp and restless. Arv tried to keep peace between them, but it was clear that his wife's temper was increasing with every passing day. Mina, however, had changed. The soft, fragile woman who once trembled under Ria's words was now calm and steady. She smiled more often, spoke gently, and carried herself with quiet pride. That calmness seemed to irritate Ria even more. Ria started noticing that Mina had stopped reacting to her taunts. When Ria rolled her eyes or made sarcastic comments, Mina simply smiled and continued her work. It was as if nothing could hurt her anymore, and that, to Ria, felt like defeat. She wanted Mina to break again, to feel small, but instead, she saw her mother-in-law becoming stronger each day. "I still remember that day," Mina would say to herself later, when she thought about how everything began to turn. It was a Sunday morning. Arv had gone to visit a client, and Mina was preparing lunch. The kitchen smelled of cumin and fried onions. The sound of sizzling filled the room, and sunlight streamed through the window, dancing across the walls. Mina was humming softly when Ria entered. She was dressed in expensive clothes, ready to go out. Her perfume filled the air, sweet and heavy. "Cooking again?" Ria asked with a fake smile. "You really don't get tired of being a servant, do you?" Mina turned, wiping her hands on her sari. "Cooking makes me happy," she said simply. "And at least I cook with love." Ria's smile faded. "You're trying to act smart now," she said sharply. "You think just because you started that little food group, you're some kind of businesswoman?" Mina looked at her calmly. "No, Ria. I just think everyone deserves a chance to do something meaningful." Ria laughed coldly. "Meaningful? Please. You're old. You should rest and stop pretending to be important." Mina didn't reply. She continued stirring the pot, the soft clinking of the spoon the only sound in the room. That silence angered Ria more than any argument could have. She clenched her fists and said, "Let's see how long you stay peaceful. You can't hide behind your fake calmness forever. Later that afternoon, when Arv came home, Ria started her new plan. She pretended to cry, sitting on the couch, covering her face. Arv rushed to her side, worried. "What happened, Ria?" he asked. She sniffed loudly and said, "Your mother scolded me today. She said I'm worthless, that I don't know how to run a house. I tried so hard, Arv, but she keeps humiliating me." Arv frowned. "That doesn't sound like Ma," he said slowly. Ria widened her eyes, pretending to be hurt. "Of course, you'll take her side," she said in a trembling voice. "You always do. Maybe I should just go to my mother's house if I'm not respected here." Arv, confused and tired, didn't know what to say. He went to Mina's room quietly. "Ma," he said softly, "did you and Ria argue?" Mina looked up from her knitting, surprised. "No, Beta," she said. "We didn't argue. She came to the kitchen, said a few things, and I said nothing." Arv sighed. He wanted to believe his mother, but Ria's tears had already planted doubt in his heart. "Ma, please try to keep peace," he said, and walked away. Mina sat there, watching the door close behind him. A small tear rolled down her cheek, not from pain this time, but from disappointment. She understood what was happening. Ria wasn't just cruel, she was clever. That night, Mina couldn't sleep. The house was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic outside. She sat near her window, watching the streetlights flicker. The world outside looked peaceful, but inside the house, her heart was heavy. She thought of her son, the boy who used to hold her hand, who once promised he would never let her feel lonely. Where had that love gone? Then she remembered the temple women and the words they often said, "No one can take your respect unless you give it away." Mina realized that her silence could either be her weakness or her weapon, depending on how she used it. The next morning, she decided she would not let lies control her life. She got up early, made breakfast, and waited. When Ria entered the kitchen, Mina greeted her politely, as if nothing had happened. Ria seemed surprised. She had expected Mina to look sad or angry. Instead, she found her cheerful. "Good morning, Ria," Mina said, smiling. "Would you like some tea?" Ria frowned. "No, thanks," she said coldly. She picked up her phone and left. But deep inside, she began to feel uneasy. Her tricks were losing power. Over the next few weeks, Mina's catering group started getting more attention. People appreciated their food and service, and soon, they received an offer to handle a large corporate event. Mina's photo was printed again in a local newspaper, this time with her name and number listed as the main contact. Arv showed the article to Ria at breakfast. "Look at this. Mom's group is doing amazing," he said proudly. Ria looked at the paper and forced a smile. "Wow, that's nice," she said, her voice tight. As soon as Arv left for work, she threw the newspaper on the table and muttered under her breath, "She's doing this to show off. She wants everyone to praise her." Jealousy turned into rage. That evening, Ria went into Mina's room without knocking. Mina was arranging her saris in the cupboard. "So, you think you're famous now?" Ria said with a bitter smile. "People are talking about you like you're some kind of saint. Do you even know what it feels like to be ignored in your own house while everyone praises someone else?" Mina turned to her calmly. "Ria, I don't want praise. I just want peace. We can share this house with love, not with hate." Ria's voice rose. "Love? Don't act innocent. You're manipulating Arv. You're turning him against me." Mina shook her head. "No, Ria. You're doing that yourself." For a moment, their eyes met, one pair filled with quiet strength, the other burning with anger. Then Ria said something that made Mina's heart go cold. "You think you can take everything from me? I'll show you what happens when someone crosses me." Before Mina could reply, Ria walked out, slamming the door so hard that the photo frame on the wall trembled and fell. Mina picked it up slowly. It was a picture of her, Arav, and her late husband, taken years ago. A crack had appeared across her husband's face. Mina stared at it, her eyes filling with tears. "Maybe it's time," she whispered softly. The next few days were unusually calm. Ria acted sweet again, smiling, cooking dinner, and even asking Mina about her day. But Mina had learned that calmness around Ria meant something was being planned. One afternoon, while Mina was out for her catering work, Ria went through her things. She found the small notebook under Mina's pillow, the one with her notes and ideas. Ria flipped through it and found the list of clients and upcoming events. A cruel smile crossed her face. "Let's see how well your business does when people start doubting you," she muttered. That night, Ria created a fake message using Mina's name and sent it to one of the clients, demanding more payment and threatening to cancel the order. The next morning, Mina received a call from the group leader, sounding upset. "Mina G, what happened? Why did you message Mr. Kapoor like that? He said you threatened him." Mina was shocked. "What? I didn't message anyone," she said quickly. But the damage was done. Rumors started spreading. For the first time, Mina's group looked at her with suspicion. They didn't want to believe she could do such a thing, but the message seemed real. Mina's heart sank. She didn't know how to prove her innocence. When she came home that evening, she found Ria sitting on the sofa, smiling faintly. "Rough day?" Ria asked sweetly. Mina looked at her, realizing the truth. "You did this," Mina said quietly. Ria laughed. "Proof, dear? Do you have any?" Mina didn't reply. She walked to her room silently, her hands trembling. She sat down on her bed, staring at the floor. The humiliation from her birthday party flashed before her eyes, the laughter, the wine, the words, "Now you look as cheap as you are." She took a deep breath. Her voice was calm but filled with quiet fire as she whispered to herself, "You've gone too far this time, Ria. You think you've won, but you've only pushed me to remember who I really am." The next morning, Mina didn't cry, didn't complain. Instead, she went to a nearby shop and bought a small notebook and a pen. She started writing everything. Every insult, every cruel word, every lie, every plan. She knew she would need proof someday. As she wrote, her eyes grew sharper, her face stronger. The same woman who had once stood silently covered in wine was now preparing her next step with quiet power. That evening, when Arav returned home, Ria greeted him with exaggerated cheerfulness. "You won't believe what happened today," she said. "Your mother's business friends are angry with her. She messed up something big." Arav looked surprised. "What? That can't be true." "Oh, it's true," Ria said, showing him her phone. "See? They're talking about it in their group chat." Arav frowned deeply, confused. He didn't know what to believe. As he looked at his wife and then at his mother, standing silently near the door, something in his heart stirred, doubt. He couldn't ignore the sadness in his mother's eyes. That night, as Mina sat quietly in her room, the wind outside howled softly, and the lights flickered. She looked out the window and whispered, "If she wants a game, I'll give her one. But this time, I'll win." And just then, her phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number that said, "I know what really happened. Meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. near the temple." Mina stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Who was it? How did they know? The house was quieter the next morning, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of silence that follows after a storm, heavy, waiting for the next strike. Mira woke up early, her eyes swollen from crying, her mind replaying every cruel laugh, every whisper from the night before. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the birthday gift boxes that still lay unopened. The ribbons looked so cheerful, but inside, she knew most of them were empty gestures. How easily people show their real faces when they think no one's watching, she whispered to herself. The sun had risen, but her heart still felt trapped in the darkness of the night before. Downstairs, the living room was a mess, broken glass from a dropped wine glass, half-eaten cake, and scattered napkins. It was as if the celebration had exploded and left only shame behind. She could hear faint voices coming from the kitchen, her son, Rohan, and his wife, Alina. Their tones were low, but tense. Something about the way they spoke made Mira stop halfway down the stairs. She didn't mean to eavesdrop, but their words pulled her closer. "I told you to be careful," Rohan whispered harshly. "Oh, come on," Alina replied in that cold, confident tone. She needed to be put in her place. "She keeps acting like she owns everything." "I just gave her a small reminder that times have changed." "You humiliated my mother in front of everyone." Rohan snapped, but his voice trembled, not from anger, but fear. "People will talk, Alina. You went too far." "So what if they talk?" she hissed. "Your mother has made my life miserable since I married you. She judges everything, the food I cook, the clothes I wear, the friends I have. She deserved that lesson. Now maybe she'll stay quiet." Mira stood frozen near the doorway. Her heart pounded in her chest, and her palms turned cold. She wanted to run inside, scream at them, demand an explanation, but she didn't. Instead, she stepped back quietly, her breath shaky. In that moment, something inside her broke, but something else was born too: strength. Quiet, invisible strength. She walked back upstairs slowly, each step heavy, but her mind clear. She sat by the window and stared outside. The neighborhood was waking up, children leaving for school, milkmen cycling past, women sweeping their porches. The world was moving on, but she couldn't. Alina's words burned in her mind, she needed to be put in her place. Mira smiled bitterly. "Maybe it's time she learns what my real place is," she murmured. Later that afternoon, Rohan came to her room. He looked pale, ashamed. "Ma," he said softly, "I'm sorry about last night." Alina got carried away. "Please don't take it too seriously." Mira turned to him and smiled faintly. "Don't worry, Beta. I'm not angry," she said. "But I've learned something very important." Rohan frowned. "What do you mean?" She just shook her head and said, "You'll see soon enough." That answer scared him more than her silence. He left the room, unsure of what she was planning. By evening, the house felt different. Alina was busy on her phone, laughing with her friends, as if nothing had happened. She walked past Mira in the hallway, not even meeting her eyes. Mira watched her closely, noticing every small smirk, every careless step. That night, when everyone went to sleep, Mira sat alone with her diary. She began to write, something she hadn't done in years. She wrote about her life, her sacrifices, her love for her son, and the pain she felt when that love was crushed. She wrote everything, every truth that had been hidden. And when she finished, she tore out the page and slipped it inside an old envelope. The next morning, a soft knock came at her door. It was Alina, dressed elegantly, holding a cup of tea. "Good morning," she said in a falsely sweet tone. "I thought you might like some tea. I want to start fresh, you know?" Mira looked up, calm but unreadable. "Fresh starts are always nice," she replied softly. "But remember, a fresh start doesn't erase what's been done." Alina's smile faded for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Of course," she said lightly, placing the cup down and leaving. As soon as she left, Mira noticed something strange, the faint sound of whispering coming from Alina's room. It was the same low, secretive tone she had heard the day before. This time, curiosity overpowered her restraint. She moved quietly down the hall and stood near the slightly open door. Inside, she could hear Alina speaking on the phone. "Yes, everything's under control," Alina whispered. "Once I convince Rohan to sell that old house in the village, I'll get the money transferred." His mother won't even know what's happening. She's too emotional, too naive to suspect anything. Mira's body went cold. Sell the old house? That house was her husband's legacy, the place where Rohan grew up, where she and her late husband had built their life. It was everything she had left of him. And now, this woman, this manipulative stranger, was planning to take it away. Mira backed away slowly, her breath unsteady. The tea in her hands shook, spilling drops on the floor. She walked back to her room, closed the door quietly, and locked it. Her hands were trembling, but her mind was sharper than ever. So this wasn't just humiliation, she whispered to herself. This was part of something bigger. For the rest of the day, she pretended to be normal. She helped the maid, watered the plants, and even smiled when Rohan came home from work. But inside, she was planning. She needed proof, real proof, before she could confront them. She knew Alina was clever, manipulative, and used charm to get her way. Mira couldn't fight her with anger, she had to use patience. That night, Mira waited until everyone was asleep again. She tiptoed to Alina's room and looked around carefully. On the table lay Alina's open laptop, the screen still glowing faintly. Mira hesitated, then stepped closer. On the screen, an email was open, one that made her heart pound even faster. It was a conversation between Alina and someone named Mr. Kapoor about selling property shares. Once the papers are ready, my husband will sign them without questions, Alina had written. Mira took a picture of the email with her phone, her hands shaking but determined. As she turned to leave, she heard a soft sound, a creak from the door. She froze. Someone was standing there. The faint light from the hallway stretched into the room, and she saw a shadow, tall, familiar. Ma? Rohan's voice came from the doorway. He looked half asleep but confused. What are you doing in here? Mira's heart almost stopped. She had been caught. The phone in her hand glowed faintly with the photo she had just taken. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. Then, forcing a calm smile, she whispered, I just came to check if Alina needed a blanket. It's cold tonight. Rohan frowned. At this hour? You should rest, Ma. He looked past her at the laptop but didn't say anything more. She quickly walked out, her heart thudding so hard she thought it might give her away. Back in her room, she locked the door again and leaned against it, breathing heavily. She looked at the picture on her phone, the email was clear, undeniable. Now I know the truth, she said softly. And soon, everyone else will too. But as she placed her phone on the table, she didn't notice the blinking red light on her wardrobe shelf, a small security camera, the one her son had installed months ago for safety. It had captured everything. And that night, while Mira finally felt she was one step ahead, someone else was already watching her every move. The next morning, sunlight crept through the curtains and touched Mira's tired face. She hadn't slept all night. The picture of the email still glowed in her mind, burning like a secret flame. She sat quietly on the bed, holding her cup of tea, pretending to be calm. But inside, her heart was racing. The air in the house felt strange, thick, like it was holding its breath. She looked out the window and saw Rohan leaving for work. Alina waved him goodbye with that same sweet smile she always wore. Mira knew now that behind that smile was poison. After Rohan left, Alina walked back into the living room, humming softly. Mira watched her from the corner of her eye. She looked so confident, so sure that everything was under her control. Mira almost admired her, the way she hid her greed behind charm, her lies behind laughter. But Mira had learned something long ago: quiet people can be dangerous when pushed too far. She waited until Alina went upstairs for her morning call, then went to the kitchen. The maid, Kamla, was washing dishes. Kamla, Mira said softly, did you notice anything strange yesterday? Kamla hesitated. Madam, I don't like to say things about the family, but I heard Madam Alina talking on the phone. She said something about selling land. I didn't understand much. Mira nodded slowly. It's okay. You've said enough. For the rest of the day, Mira acted as if everything was normal. She talked politely, ate lunch with Alina, even complimented her cooking. Inside, she was building her next move carefully. She knew that one wrong word could expose her. And she also knew that Alina was sharp, one sign of suspicion, and she would hide everything. That evening, Rohan came home tired. Long day? Mira asked kindly. Yes, he sighed. Work is getting stressful. Alina walked up behind him, putting her hand on his shoulder. Don't worry, darling, she said sweetly. We'll take a small vacation soon. Maybe go to the farmhouse near the lake? The farmhouse? Mira repeated quietly. Yes, Alina said without looking at her. It's old and empty anyway. Maybe it's time to do something new with it. That one sentence confirmed everything for Mira. The farmhouse was part of the same property mentioned in the email. She smiled faintly and said, You're right, dear. Maybe it's time for something new indeed. That night, after everyone went to sleep, Mira sat at her dressing table and looked into the mirror. Her reflection stared back, older, tired, but calm. She thought about her husband, how he had built everything with honesty and love. You trusted me to protect what you built, she whispered. And I won't fail you. She picked up her phone, opened the photo of the email again, and then did something unexpected. She deleted it. She didn't want revenge to come from anger. She wanted it to come from truth. So she decided to let Alina believe she was safe, for now. The next day, Rohan left early again. Alina spent most of the day on her laptop. Mira stayed in her room, reading old letters from her husband. Around noon, she heard footsteps outside her door, slow, cautious. Then a soft knock. Come in, she said. Alina entered, holding a small plate of sweets. I made something special, she said. Peace offering? Mira smiled gently. You didn't need to. I know I said some harsh things that night, Alina continued, her tone almost sincere. I was drunk, emotional. I didn't mean to hurt you. Mira looked at her carefully. Words said in anger are still words from the heart, she said softly. Alina froze for a second but quickly smiled again. Maybe. But I hope we can move on. She placed the plate on the table and left. Mira didn't touch the sweets. She had seen the flicker in Alina's eyes. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. Somehow, Alina had sensed that Mira knew something. That evening, when Mira was watering the plants in the backyard, she heard voices again, coming from Alina's room upstairs. She moved closer, standing under the balcony, hidden behind the vines. She could hear Alina's angry voice. What do you mean the papers aren't ready yet? I told you I need them signed this week, she hissed. No, my husband doesn't know. He never will. Just make sure it's done before she finds out. Before she finds out. Mira smiled bitterly. Too late, my dear, she whispered to herself. That night, something unexpected happened. Rohan came into her room, holding a small box. Ma, he said nervously, Alina and I were talking, and we think it's time we handle the family properties properly. Maybe transfer them into both our names, just to make things easier. Mira looked at him, pretending to be surprised. Both your names? Yes, he said. It's just paperwork. Nothing will really change. I see, she said slowly. But do you really think that's what your father would have wanted? Rohan hesitated. Ma, please don't take it the wrong way. Alina just thinks it'll help manage things better. I understand, Mira said calmly. Let's talk about it tomorrow. I'm tired tonight. After he left, Mira's hands trembled. It was happening. Alina was using her son's love to control everything. Mira walked to the window, looking out into the dark sky. She could feel tears burning her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "If she wants a game," she said softly, "then I'll play. But on my rules." The next day, Mira went to meet someone quietly, her old friend, Mr. Sharma, a lawyer who had helped her husband years ago. She took a cab, making sure no one saw her leave. "I need your advice," she said when she met him. "Someone's trying to take away what my husband left behind." She told him everything: the humiliation, the email, the farmhouse, the plan. Mr. Sharma listened carefully and nodded. "You did the right thing coming to me," he said. "We can secure everything legally. But you'll have to act smart. Don't confront them yet. Let them think you don't know." When Mira returned home that evening, Alina greeted her with fake warmth. "Where did you go, Mom?" she asked, too casually. "Oh, just to the temple," Mira replied with a soft smile. "Needed some peace." Alina's eyes narrowed slightly, but she didn't say more. That night, Mira sat on her bed, reading an old photo album. She stopped at a picture of her husband holding baby Rohan in his arms. Her eyes softened. "For you," she whispered, "I'll protect everything." But just as she closed the album, her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. She opened it and froze. It was a photo of her, taken last night through the small window of her room. The message below read, "Stop interfering, or the next picture won't be so innocent." Mira's hand trembled as she held the phone. Her heart raced. Someone was watching her. Someone knew exactly what she was planning. She turned off the phone, locked her door, and sat in the dark, staring at the shadows moving on the wall. The game had just changed. That night, sleep never came to Mira. Every small sound made her heart jump: the creak of the ceiling fan, the wind brushing against the window, the ticking of the clock. The message still glowed in her mind: "Stop interfering, or the next picture won't be so innocent." She sat quietly on her bed, holding the phone, staring at the dark screen as if it could whisper who had sent it. She didn't need to think hard. It had to be Alina. Who else would try to scare her into silence? But something about the photo, the angle, the distance, made her uneasy. It wasn't taken from inside the house. It was taken from outside. The next morning, she tried to act normal, though her hands were cold, and her voice trembled slightly when she spoke. Rohan noticed. "Ma, are you all right? You look pale." "I'm fine," she said softly. "Didn't sleep well, that's all." Alina smiled from across the breakfast table, her eyes glinting. "Maybe you need some rest, Ma. You've been thinking too much lately." The tone was light, but the words cut deep. After breakfast, Mira went to her room, locked the door, and checked every corner. She opened the curtains, looked outside the window, and froze. Across the narrow lane, behind the trees, she saw a small flash of light, like the reflection from a lens. It disappeared quickly, but she had seen it. Someone was watching the house. She picked up her phone and called Mr. Sharma. "I think someone is spying on me," she whispered. "Can you help me?" "Stay calm, Mira," he said. "Do not confront anyone yet. Tomorrow, I'll send someone to check your house discreetly. For now, just stay inside and act as if nothing happened." "All right," she said quietly, though her heart thudded like a drum. All day, she kept her curtains closed. Every time the floorboards creaked, she turned her head sharply. Even the quiet hum of the refrigerator made her uneasy. She knew Alina was capable of manipulation, but was she also capable of this level of intimidation? That evening, Rohan came home later than usual. Mira tried to talk to him, but Alina stayed glued to his side, laughing, keeping the conversation light, not allowing any serious words to pass between them. When Rohan went to take a shower, Alina leaned closer to Mira and whispered, "You should stop digging into things you don't understand." Sometimes silence keeps peace. Mira looked at her calmly. And sometimes silence becomes a weapon, she said softly. For the first time, Alina's confident smile flickered. But only for a second. You're getting old, Ma, she said. Maybe you're imagining things. Mira didn't reply. She simply stood up and left the room, her back straight, her steps slow but steady. Inside her heart, fear and anger were mixing into something else, quiet determination. That night, as the house fell into silence, she took out her old wooden box from the wardrobe. Inside it were her husband's papers, land deeds, bank documents, and a small black diary with his handwriting. She opened the diary and found something she had forgotten, a note from him that said, "If anything ever happens to me, trust your instincts. Truth is always your weapon." Her eyes filled with tears. She touched the words gently, feeling his strength in them. "I'll trust my instincts," she whispered. Just then, she heard a faint sound, a soft click near the door. She froze. Someone was outside. She quickly hid the box under her blanket and turned off the light. The handle of her door moved slightly, but the lock held. After a few seconds, the sound faded. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure it could be heard. In the morning, she found something that made her blood run cold, muddy footprints near her door. Someone had tried to enter her room in the night. She looked toward Alina's room. The door was open, the bed neatly made, but Alina was gone. "She's out early," the maid said. Said she had to meet someone. Meet who? Mira's mind raced. She decided to follow her. She wrapped her shawl tightly, took a rickshaw, and followed Alina's car at a distance. The road curved through the market and into an old commercial area. The car stopped outside a small cafe. From her seat in the rickshaw, Mira saw Alina meet a man, middle-aged, wearing glasses. It was the same name she had seen in the email, Mr. Kapoor. They sat close, talking in low voices. Mira couldn't hear their words, but their expressions told enough. Alina looked tense but determined, and Mr. Kapoor kept showing her some papers. After a few minutes, they shook hands. Mira took out her phone and snapped a few pictures. When Alina left, Mira stayed behind, watching Mr. Kapoor. After he finished his tea, he walked out and got into his car. On impulse, Mira followed him too. His car stopped at an office building nearby, Kapoor and Associates Realty Private Limited. It was exactly what she suspected. She went home with her heart pounding, but she felt a strange calm inside her. For the first time, she wasn't confused, she was certain. She had proof now. That evening, when Alina returned, she acted as if nothing had happened. She smiled sweetly and even complimented Mira's cooking. "Smells delicious," she said. Mira smiled back. "Thank you, Beta. You should eat well tonight. You'll need your strength." Alina looked up, puzzled. "Why do you say that?" "Oh, no reason," Mira said casually. "Just a feeling." But inside, her mind was already racing through the next step. She knew that direct confrontation wouldn't work. Alina was too smart, too manipulative. Mira needed to break her confidence first. Later that night, Mira took out her phone and sent a message from a new number she had bought earlier through a friend. The message was short and sharp. "I know everything about the property deal. Stop now, or everyone will." Then she turned off the phone and waited. The next morning, Alina looked different, nervous, distracted. She barely spoke at breakfast and kept checking her phone. When Rohan asked her what was wrong, she forced a laugh. "Nothing, just work stress." Mira watched her carefully. Every twitch of her hand, every flicker in her eyes told her that the message had worked. The fear had begun to settle in. That evening, when Rohan went out to buy groceries, Mira found Alina pacing in her room, whispering on the phone. "Someone knows," she said in a panicked voice. "They sent me a message last night. If Rohan finds out, everything's over. Calm down, the voice on the other end said. Just destroy the papers. We'll handle it. I can't, she hissed. They'll know I did it. Mira smiled quietly outside the door. The cracks were beginning to show. She walked away, satisfied, her plan slowly taking shape. That night, before sleeping, Mira went to her mirror and looked at her reflection. For the first time in weeks, she saw strength in her own eyes. You forgot who I am, she whispered softly, echoing the title of her pain. But you're about to remember. She turned off the light and lay down, but her peace didn't last long. Around midnight, her phone buzzed again, another message from an unknown number. You think you're safe? Look behind you. Her blood turned cold. Her fingers trembled as she slowly turned her head toward the window. The curtains were slightly open. A face, pale, unfamiliar, was staring right at her from the darkness outside. And then it disappeared. Mira's scream never left her throat. Her voice froze, caught between disbelief and terror. For a long, breathless second, she couldn't move, she only stared at the window where that pale face had been. The curtain fluttered gently, whispering in the wind, as if mocking her silence. She rushed forward, closed the window tightly, and pulled the curtains shut. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped the latch twice before it locked. The house was completely still, yet her heart pounded as if something monstrous hid inside the walls. She pressed her back against the wall, trying to breathe. Who was that? She wondered. Was it someone Alina sent? Was she being watched, or was her mind finally cracking under pressure? The thought scared her even more. What if no one believed her? When dawn arrived, Mira still hadn't slept. The faint light of morning felt strange, too calm, too normal after such a night. She walked to the mirror, her reflection pale and exhausted. But her eyes, they looked sharper now. Fear had begun to turn into fire. At breakfast, she sat quietly, watching Alina and Rohan talk. Alina looked perfectly relaxed, scrolling through her phone, pretending the world was fine. Did you sleep well, Ma? She asked sweetly. Mira smiled faintly. Yes, dear. I did. Inside, she wanted to scream at her, to tell Rohan everything, but she stopped herself. It wasn't time. Not yet. After breakfast, Rohan left for work again. Mira waited until she heard the sound of his car fade away before she stood up and turned to Alina. Can we talk? She said calmly. Alina raised an eyebrow. Of course, Ma. What's wrong? Mira motioned for her to sit. I've been thinking a lot lately. You're right, I should trust you more. Maybe it's time I hand over some responsibilities to you. You're young, modern, you understand the world better. For a split second, Alina's eyes gleamed with triumph, though she quickly tried to hide it. That's very sweet of you, Ma. I didn't expect this. I've already spoken to the lawyer, Mira continued. He'll be visiting tomorrow with the documents. I want both of you to sign together, so there are no misunderstandings. Alina's expression froze. You already spoke to the lawyer? Yes, Mira said, pretending to look distracted. You know Mr. Sharma, right? The color drained from Alina's face. Mr. Sharma was the one person who could expose her entire plan. Mira smiled politely and stood. Well, I should rest. Big day tomorrow. She walked away, leaving Alina sitting stiff, her face pale, her eyes darting around the room like trapped birds. That night, Alina couldn't sit still. Mira could hear her pacing, whispering on the phone again. We have to do something, she hissed. She's bringing her lawyer. If she finds out about the forged papers, we're finished. The voice on the other end spoke rapidly, but Mira couldn't catch the words. Then came something unexpected. Alina said, I'll take care of her tonight. Mira froze in her bed. Every sound felt louder, the ticking of the clock, the faint hum of the streetlights outside, even her own breath. Take care of her tonight, those words echoed in her head like thunder. She turned off her lamp and pretended to sleep, but she kept her phone ready, camera open. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. The house was silent. Then, around 1 a.m, she heard it, soft footsteps outside her door. Slow, deliberate, careful. Her throat went dry. The handle turned gently, once, twice. Then stopped. She waited, not moving, barely breathing. After a few seconds, the door opened slightly. A shadow slipped inside. The dim light from the hallway revealed a tall figure, Alina. She was holding something in her hand, a small vial, shining faintly under the light. She moved toward Mira's bedside table, unscrewed the cap, and poured the liquid into Mira's water glass. Mira's heart almost stopped. She didn't move. She just watched through the narrow slit between her eyelids, her phone quietly recording from under the blanket. When Alina finished, she leaned over, looking at Mira's sleeping face. You should have stayed quiet, she whispered coldly. Now you'll get your peace. Then she turned and left the room, closing the door behind her. Mira waited several minutes before sitting up, trembling. Her entire body was cold. She looked at the water glass, the surface shimmered faintly under the light. She picked it up carefully and sniffed it. A bitter, chemical smell hit her nose. She put it down, terrified and shaking, then picked up her phone and stopped the recording. The evidence was there. Everything. She couldn't sleep after that. She sat in her chair, waiting for morning, watching the sky slowly change from black to blue. When Rohan came down for breakfast, Alina was all smiles again. Good morning, darling, she said cheerfully. How about some tea? Where's Ma? He asked. She's probably still asleep, Alina said smoothly. She looked tired last night. But just as she said that, Mira appeared in the doorway. She was dressed neatly, holding her phone in her hand. Good morning, she said. Her voice was calm, too calm. Ma! Rohan smiled. You're up early. Yes, she said softly. I wanted to have breakfast with both of you today. I think we've been keeping too many things unsaid. Alina's eyes flickered, but she smiled sweetly. That's a nice thought. Mira sat down, keeping her phone on the table. Rohan, she began, do you remember your father's diary? The one he gave you on your wedding day? He nodded slowly. Yes, it's in the cupboard. He always said one thing, truth may hide, but it never dies, she said. I think today you'll see what he meant. Rohan looked confused. What do you mean, Ma? Mira picked up her phone and opened the video. Without saying another word, she pressed play. The room filled with the faint sound of footsteps, the door opening, and Alina's shadow moving toward the bed. The camera caught everything, the vial, the pouring, the whisper, you should have stayed quiet. Rohan's face turned pale. His hand froze halfway to his cup. Alina jumped to her feet. This is not what it looks like, she shouted. Mira looked at her quietly. Then tell me what it is. I was just. I thought she couldn't sleep, so I was mixing medicine in her water. Medicine? Mira asked calmly. Then why did it smell like poison? Alina's mouth opened, but no words came. Her face twisted between fear and rage. You're lying. You set me up. Did I? Mira asked softly. Or did you set yourself up? Rohan stood there in complete shock. Alina, tell me this isn't true. Rohan, please, she cried, tears streaming down her face. Your mother hates me. She wants to destroy our marriage. Mira reached into her pocket and took out her phone again. Then maybe you can explain this too. She opened the gallery and showed the photos, Alina with Mr. Kapoor, the emails, the recorded call. Everything. Rohan's face changed. His hands clenched into fists. "You've been cheating us, using me," he whispered. "No! It's not like that," Alina screamed. "I just wanted security. Your mother never trusted me." Meera stood slowly. "And you repaid that by trying to kill me?" The silence that followed was like a storm before lightning. Rohan took a step back, disgusted. Alina tried to reach for him, but he pulled away. "Don't touch me," he said coldly. "I'll never forgive this." Alina's eyes darted between them, desperate, trapped. "You'll both regret this," she spat, and then she turned and ran out of the house. The door slammed behind her, leaving only silence and the faint echo of her footsteps fading away. Rohan sank into a chair, his face pale. "Ma," he whispered, "I don't understand, how could she?" Meera placed a hand on his shoulder gently. "Evil hides behind love sometimes," she said softly. "But truth always shows its face." Rohan buried his face in his hands. "I'm so sorry, Ma. I should have listened sooner." Meera sighed, her eyes tired but calm. "It's over now," she said. "But we're not done yet. Some truths need to be told, properly." As the morning light filled the room, she picked up the phone and dialed a number, Mr. Sharma's. "It's time," she said. "We'll meet today." But as she ended the call, she didn't notice the figure standing quietly across the street, watching their house through a car window. It was Alina. And she wasn't done yet. The morning sun rose slowly that day, painting the sky with soft orange light, but Meera felt no warmth. Her mind was calm, yet alert. The air around her carried the quiet tension that comes before a storm. She knew it was not over, not until Alina was truly out of their lives. Rohan sat at the dining table, silent and pale. He hadn't eaten anything since the night before. The betrayal had broken something inside him. Meera wanted to comfort him, but she knew some wounds needed truth more than words. She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Today will be hard," she said softly, "but it will also bring peace." He nodded slowly. "I'm ready, Ma." At 10 in the morning, Mr. Sharma arrived. The old lawyer walked in with his briefcase, his eyes serious but kind. "Good morning, Meera ji," he said. "I came as you requested. Are we still going ahead with the property documents?" "Yes," Meera replied, "but there's been a change of plan." She handed him a folder. It contained every proof she had gathered, the recordings, photos, bank statements, and the poison vial sealed in a small bag. "Before we sign anything," she continued, "we must take these to the police. This woman tried to kill me." Mr. Sharma looked at her with shock. "Good heavens, who would do such a thing?" Meera looked straight at him. "My daughter-in-law, Alina." Just then, Rohan's phone buzzed on the table. He picked it up and frowned. It was a message from an unknown number. "You ruined my life. I'll see you both one last time." Meera's heart skipped a beat. "She's coming here," she whispered. Within an hour, there was a loud knock on the door, hard, impatient, furious. Rohan opened it, and there she was, Alina, her hair messy, her face pale but her eyes burning with rage. "You think you've won?" she hissed. "You don't even know half of it." "Alina," Rohan said quietly, "please leave. We've seen what you did." She laughed, a bitter, broken laugh. "Seen what I did? You believed that old woman's lies over your wife? You think she's a saint?" Meera stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Enough, Alina. You have destroyed your own life with your greed and hate. Don't make it worse." Alina's hands trembled. "You took everything from me. You treated me like a servant, never like family." "I gave you love," Meera said softly. But love is not something you can steal. You threw it away. Rohan stepped between them. Alina, stop this. We're going to the police. Alina's face twisted. You'll regret this, Rohan. You'll regret betraying me. She reached into her bag, and for a moment, everyone froze. Mr. Sharma shouted, "Careful!" But instead of a weapon, she pulled out a small glass bottle, the same kind she had used before. "If I can't have peace, none of you will," she screamed and threw the bottle toward Meera. Time slowed. Rohan jumped forward, catching Meera and pulling her aside just as the bottle shattered on the floor, spilling a dark liquid. The sharp smell filled the room. It burned their eyes, but no one was hurt. Before Alina could run, Rohan grabbed her wrist. "It's over," he said, his voice shaking with anger. "You need help, Alina, not more lies." She fought, screaming and crying, but within minutes, the police arrived. Mr. Sharma had already called them the moment she entered. As the officers led her away, she turned one last time, her eyes wild and wet. "You'll regret this, Meera. You'll regret everything." Meera looked at her with calm sadness. "No, Alina," she said quietly. "I'll pray for you." When the police car drove away, silence filled the house. Meera sank onto the sofa, her body finally giving in to exhaustion. Rohan knelt beside her. "Ma. I'm so sorry for everything," he said, his voice breaking. She smiled faintly and cupped his face. "Don't be sorry, my son. You were blinded by love. That's not a sin. But now you see the truth, and that's all that matters." Tears filled Rohan's eyes. "I almost lost you." "You never will," she said softly. "Because from now on, we start again." Mr. Sharma cleared his throat gently. "If you're ready, Meera ji, we can proceed with the documents. I'll make sure everything goes to your name only, so there will be no danger in the future." Meera nodded slowly. "Yes, please do that. I don't want my home to fall into greedy hands again." Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Meera stood in the garden, the same place where she had celebrated her birthday, the night everything had changed. The broken decorations were gone, the stains were cleaned, but the memories lingered like faint shadows. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. The cool wind brushed against her face, carrying peace, something she hadn't felt in weeks. Rohan joined her quietly, holding 2 cups of tea. "Here," he said softly, handing her one. "You taught me this, Ma, when life breaks you, make tea, not tears." She smiled, her eyes glistening. "That's right. Tears dry fast. Tea keeps you warm." They stood together, silent, watching the night sky. For the first time in a long while, Meera felt truly free. The house was no longer filled with fear, only calm. But somewhere deep inside, she knew the scars would remain, not to hurt her, but to remind her of her strength. She had faced humiliation, betrayal, and danger, but she had risen above it all with dignity. That night, before going to bed, Meera sat by her window and whispered softly, "I still remember that night, the night she tried to destroy me. But I also remember the moment I took my power back." Her reflection in the glass looked peaceful. The woman staring back wasn't just a mother or a widow anymore, she was a survivor. She picked up her diary and began to write. "Sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are the ones we once called family. But no matter how deep the pain, the truth always finds its voice. And when it does, it gives us the courage to rise again." She closed the diary, smiled gently, and turned off the light. The house went dark, calm, and still. Outside, the moon shone softly on the quiet street, as if watching over her, keeping her safe. And with that, the story of Meera, the woman who was humiliated, betrayed, and almost broken, finally found its peace. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more emotional and suspenseful life stories like this one to you.